on the channel today. One of many improvements that I promised is coming to the channel. You're going to meet a new contributor to the channel coming right up. Hey, it is Russ from the Infectious Groove podcast and YouTube channel. Today is the first of many improvements to the channel that I told you were coming. We now have a second contributor to the channel that you're going to learn all about today. This is Lauren, who has her own music podcast, the Beard Owl podcast, which I've appeared on at least 3 or 4 times. Four times I've been on the channel on her podcast as well. But there is so much more to Lauren than just Weird Al. She likes a ton of different artists, and she's going to be contributing the same type of videos to the channel that I like. Who are some of your favorite artists? We know Weird Al.
We know Weird Al. We know Weird Al very well. Yeah, when you asked me like my top 5, I was thinking, well, Weird Al goes without saying, but I am a complex person. I like more than Weird Al. And so my top 5 are obviously Weird Al, Stevie Nicks, Elton John, Billy Joel, and the Electric Light Orchestra.
So if someone was to say, you know how people say, what do you listen to? And everyone goes, oh, I listen to everything. You're classic rock.
Yeah.
For the most part.
For the most part.
And then I would assume that Weird Al, at least for me, Weird Al growing up was one of those artists that helped me get into more. Mm-hmm. Like, it helped me branch out and listen to many, many different artists that I normally wouldn't or hadn't yet. And I know Lauren has a whole series of videos that are going to be coming up on the channel, one of which will, of course, be 5 underrated Weird Al songs. And I think even on her list, from what I looked at, are artists that at the time that the song came out, I wasn't into at all or hadn't even heard of. So I think Weird Al is huge for that, to help a lot of people out.
Oh, for sure. Like, I mean, full disclosure, a lot of things Weird Al had parodied, I didn't know the original to begin with. So Weird Al definitely opened the door to stuff. But I think most of the things I'm going to ultimately be talking about, Weird Al didn't really touch.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. So as far as the channel goes, for anybody who is going, who is this woman and why is she here? Tell people a little bit about yourself and your podcast.
Oh gosh, well, this is a weird question. I don't know how to answer this.
Before we hit record on this video, she said, this is a topic I know a lot about. And now that the camera's running, as far as your love of music, what's the infancy of that? How did you fall in love with music?
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I really just paid attention to the stuff that my parents were listening to. So you will probably find that most of the things that I like came out before I was born, and hence the whole classic rock kind of thing. You know, you mentioned, stuff you weren't aware of when it came out. Well, I couldn't have been aware of these things when it came out because I wasn't.
On account of not having existed.
Yeah.
Now, your show is called the Beard Al podcast, and so if you notice, it's not the Weird Al podcast, it's the Beard Al podcast. And why is it that you have started a podcast a couple of years ago now? Mm-hmm. 2 years? Why did you start a podcast about beer and Weird Al?
Well, okay. There are 2 favorite things, and when I say I do the show with my brother John, and Weird Al was the thing that we could always agree on when we were kids. Because when you're siblings, you're always going to fight about stuff and just like not always share common interests, but Weird Al was always the thing that we both loved. And then when we both could legally do so, we both found out we loved craft beer as well. And so, I live in Florida and he's up in Pennsylvania, and we started the show as a way to stay connected with each other, over the miles. And when it came down to topics, I think I suggested Weird Al, and John goes, okay, but aren't there other Weird Al podcasts out there? And there are. And then one of us mentioned beer, and then John just goes, well, why not both? So we did both. And
so it's a very unique podcast in that. A lot of podcasts out there, the Infectious Groove podcast tries to touch on as many different genres as we can, but there's a lot of podcasts out there that are just specific to one band: Kiss, Chains, Guns N' Roses, Prince, Michael, whoever. And so while they focus on the one artist, Weird Al, they also focus on beer, which brings something interesting to it. But on top of that, though, because of all the different styles of music that Weird Al does, they end up getting to discuss a lot more artists than maybe somebody else who focuses on one particular band. So enough of my yakking about that as far as trying to promote her show goes. We'll have a link to the description if you would like to subscribe to the Beard Ale podcast. Like I always have the link down there to subscribe to the Infectious Brew podcast if you want to. But going forward on this channel, as I said originally on the major channel update video, which if you haven't watched that yet, you're wildly confused right now, go back and watch that video, then come back and pick up around here in this video. But going forward, we're going to do more of what your view counts and your YouTube analytics tell us that you want to see, which is 5 underrated songs from this artist, or 5 artists more people need to hear, or albums in someone's catalog who's underrated. And Lauren has a bunch of that lined up already for you. And since she is the first female to ever appear on the channel and will be a regular part of the channel going forward, any of you who might have questions or want a different perspective on something, please make sure to leave that in the comments below. A lot of YouTube is filled with, and I don't want to name names, but overweight white guys with beards talking about music. So it's fun for me to have a new perspective to bring to you. And I want to make sure that the viewers of the channel fully utilize that. And you have your favorite artists that you've got some very underrated songs that you want to share with. But going forward, if there's something you want to challenge us to listen to, or even if you have your opinions on everything, we want to hear them. We definitely want to hear them. Don't go leaving anything crazy on your Facebook page about how they talked about beer too much on the Beard Ale podcast, which is something that people do. But make sure to interact with us. Either one of us will be constantly checking the YouTube comments to make sure that we are taking the channel in a direction that you want to see as a music lover. For subscribing to the channel, you must love music, and we want to do our best to share our love with it and take in your love of music as well. So, as I always say in these videos, if you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure to hit subscribe, drop a like on the video if that helps, because it does help the channel, rather. And leave a comment for us below if you have more questions for Lauren or things you'd like her to cover on the channel in the future, and we'd be more than happy to get to it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching.